On behalf of the All-Ireland Institute of Hospice and Palliative Care, I'm delighted to welcome you to the 6th in our PCRN webinar series. We are recording this, but we're not going to record the Q&A. I'd like to extend a particular welcome to our presenters, Dr. Suja Samanadan, Dr. Aoife de Bruin, both of whom are from UCD, and Emma Loughney, who's from the Fulbright Commission in Ireland. Just a really quick introduction. Suja is Director of the Bachelor of Science Nursing Registration Programme in UCD, the Children's General Registration Programme, and Assistant Professor in Children's Nursing in the UCD School of Nursing, Midwifery and Health Systems. Aoife de Bruin is an Assistant Professor ad Astra Fellow in the UCD Centre for Research, Education and Innovation in Health Systems, and in the School of Nursing, Midwifery and Health Systems in UCD. And Emma Loughney, she's the Communications Manager from the Fulbright Commission in Ireland. And Emma is going to kick off for us and give us an introduction to what the Fulbright Award is all about. So Emma, I'm going to hand over to you. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much, Clodagh. And thanks to Suja and Aoife and Clodagh for organising today and for inviting me to speak. I'm just going to share some slides here now and explain to you a little bit about what the Fulbright Awards are about and how you can apply. So as Clodagh said, my name is Emma Loughney. I'm the Communications Manager with the Fulbright Commission in Ireland. And today we're going to be talking about opportunities to go to the USA on Fulbright Awards in 2021 to 2022. So Fulbright gives opportunities for passionate and accomplished students, scholars, artists, teachers, professionals from all disciplines, so not just health, but from all disciplines, to research, study, teach or lecture in the USA. The awards provide a monetary grant, visa administration, accident and emergency insurance, cultural and professional programming. And this involves, the programming involves orientations in Ireland and the US. So you'll be introduced to lots of other Fulbrighters and a vast global network within your time in the US, and indeed when you return to Ireland. There's a really big Fulbright alumni network in Ireland as well as globally, so it's a great community to link in with. So in terms of applications, our application period opened on Monday the 31st of August. It'll be closing on the 2nd of November, so we'll need all applications in by then. Reviews will be taking place November to December. These are technical reviews. Then if you're shortlisted, you would be called for interview during between January and February 2021, and then offers are made in March 2021. So the earliest you'd be able to go out if you applied between this August and November would be August 2021. So in terms of planning your application, this is a great start coming to this webinar. We'd also recommend that you review the information carefully on our website. There's a lot of information there on the awards, lots of FAQs, that we've accumulated from over the years that people will ask. We also will send you the guidelines once you contact us now that the awards are open. The Irish guidelines will really take you step by step through the application. So once you have those, you'll have all the details you need. Before that, you need to choose your award category. So I'll run through those award categories shortly. You need to find a course, or probably more appropriate for this audience, plan a research proposal for what you want to do on your Fulbright Award. You need to research what it means to be a Fulbrighter. So there is an ethos for Fulbright in terms of, international relations, enhancing international relations, enhancing communications between academic and professional networks across the globe, as well as giving back to society and cultural exchange. So it's really important to have a grasp of this, and I would recommend speaking to our alumni, looking at our website, our YouTube channel for videos of alumni to get a better understanding of this. And you will, of course, hear from Suja and Aoife today, and they'll probably touch on that aspect too. So you can register your interest now on our website. It's fulbright.ie, and then we'll send you those guidelines and the online application link. So the application itself is a global application, so people applying from all over the world. So you really need those Irish guidelines to assist you step by step through it, particularly because there are some questions in terms of English language proficiency and things that just won't apply to Irish awardees. and our guidelines will say you can skip this bit, or you must fill out this bit. So that's key. In terms of the award categories, there are 4, so you'll be choosing one of these 4 if you're applying this year or in the future. The Irish Student Awards are for postgraduate research or degree programs. The Scholar Awards are probably most appropriate for today. They're for academic or professional research and or lecturing. The Tech Impact Awards may also be relevant. These are for academic or professional research with an ICT, information communications technology focus. And then if you know anyone who is fluent in the Irish language, you can go off on an FLTA award to teach the Irish language in the US too. So the Irish Scholar Awards, which I think are most relevant to you today, are for postdoctoral, professional research or lecturing in all disciplines again. And we have these all discipline categories, but we also have a number of sponsored awards within the Scholar Award category. So I'll touch on the most appropriate of those after. But the general all discipline Scholar Awards, you need to have a PhD or 5 years relevant professional experience to be eligible for these. As I mentioned, they're for research and or lecturing in the US. You need to establish affiliation with your US institution of choice. So you can choose to go anywhere, whether it be a higher education institution or, a hospital organization. You can go for a minimum of 3 months and a maximum of 12 months. And the maximum award is $40,000. And this is dependent on, this would be the maximum award for if you were to go the full 12 months. But it will depend on where you're going, and the stipend is assessed on the cost of living essentially wherever you are going and for how long you're going. So the Tech Impact Awards, I just thought I'd touch on these too in case they're relevant for any of you. These are also for scholars professionals in any discipline, but it would be, your project would be using ICT, applying ICT to your research. So for these ones, you need to have a PhD or 3 to 5 years relevant experience, professional experience. So they're really giving preference to early career researchers. Therefore, the proposal should be non-commercial research exploring transformative power of ICT. These are much shorter term awards. So the minimum you can go for is 2 weeks and the maximum is 3 months. So these ones, if you have a kind of tech aspect to your research proposal, and you can only go for a shorter period, these ones might be the ones for you. These ones are a max award of $12,000, and that's again for the full 3-month period for the maximum period. Then Suja and Aoife, who will be speaking, went to the US, and Suja is going to be going, and Aoife has already been, on a Health Impact Scholar Award. Okay, so these ones are one of our sponsored Scholar Awards. And they're specifically to undertake professional research or professional development in any area of health. Again, they have their own kind of award period. So the minimum one for this is 3 months and the maximum is 6 months in the US. So they're open to health professionals, senior health research administrators, health research managers, and researchers in general. So you must hold an honours degree and 5 years relevant professional experience for this specific Health Impact Scholar Award. It's worth noting, I will read this out because it's very important. The US Department of State has designated the Educational Commission for Foreign Medical Graduates as the sole agency authorised to sponsor alien physicians for internship, residency and specialised clinical training in the United States. So Fulbright grantees cannot simultaneously be sponsored by ECFMG. Therefore, proposals for medical research involving clinical training, patient care or patient contact cannot be approved under the Fulbright programme. So it's worth bearing that in mind. So research proposals for a Fulbright award should be more about, observation, consultation, teaching or research. And there's a form that you will be sent out that will kind of confirm that you're on the right track for that. So some of our alumni to date specifically for the Health Impact Awards, Suja and Aoife are pictured there, and then I have included in the list here a number of other alumni. It's not an exhaustive list, it's only some of our alum, but it's just to give you an idea of the kind of areas they're coming from and the diversity of proposals and projects. So we've had, successful projects from general practice, psychiatry, radiology, physiotherapy, etc. So, there's not just one specific area we're looking for here. In terms of putting your application together, you'll need to put your personal information CV together. You need a personal statement or Fulbright statement. If you're applying for the Scholar Award category, it'll probably be phrased as the Fulbright statement. This is talking about yourself, essentially. So it's an element of the award application that you probably wouldn't be familiar with in applying for other grants. Talking about why you're passionate about what you do, what you want to contribute, overall to society, and, talking about challenges you've overcome, all of that kind of thing. It's quite personal. So it's something that we'd recommend you spend a bit of time on thinking about, maybe talking to Fulbright alumni about how they put theirs together to get an idea, because it is kind of a foreign idea, I suppose, or concept to many applicants. You'll also, of course, then need your project statement, which talk about your research proposal, and lays out a timeline of what you plan to do within your award period. You'll need 3 recommenders. So your recommenders or referees will be filling out references for you and submitting them directly to the Fulbright portal online. And they'll need to get these recommendations in by the 2nd of November deadline. So it's good to give them the heads up, give them advance warning from today, as soon as you know that you might be even applying this year. Let them know. Obviously, they'll be busy, and maybe this year even busier than usual if they're, teaching or getting to grips with the changes going on at the moment. Transcripts for student applicants, that may not apply to many here. Just a copy of your passport photo page, sample of work for artists won't apply, and a letter of affiliation for researchers or scholars. So once you've chosen where you want to go in the US, you should request a letter of affiliation to say that they're happy to host you. Now, you don't need this letter of affiliation by the 2nd of November deadline. It's not required. Will be required later in the process if you're called to interview and offered an award. But to be honest, having a letter of affiliation from that host institution saying that they really want to collaborate with you, they really want to host you, is always going to be a positive thing for both your application in the technical review as well as your interview stage. So another thing that I would get going on as soon as possible. There's a finding host. If you don't know where to start, if you don't know where you want to go, it's a good idea, obviously, to research experts in your field. Who's the person you would love to work with? Who's the expert, the top expert in what you do? Don't be afraid to reach too high, I would say, in this. Reach out to everyone you want to. You might get a reply. You mightn't get a reply from some, but it's worth putting the feelers out. Bear in mind, we welcome diversity. So that's in terms of organizations and geography as well as people. So, when you're thinking about a host organization, you don't have to be going to the biggest or the most well-renowned hospital or university. Think about what's appropriate for you and who you want to work with and where has the resources and facilities that suit your needs. Because we always welcome new collaborations. The Fulbright Awards are about lasting connections as well. So, with your home institution, Ireland, and the host institution, the US, you want to really set up a relationship that will be lasting. So, if you're going to somewhere that has no connections with Ireland yet, that's a positive too. You could always reach out to Fulbright Irish or US alum. So Irish alum like Suja and Aoife. There's lots more of the Health Impact Awardees and all discipline awardees as well who might be appropriate. But also bear in mind we have, I think from the programme so far to date, between Irish and US exchange in the 2 countries alone, there's over 2,500 of them. So nearly half of them will be US alums. So some of them will be from hospitals, universities, from a healthcare background or health kind of related studies. So it's worth looking through our alumni list on our website and seeing if there's anyone in an institution that you would like to visit, reaching out to them, asking them what their recommendations are. Use existing Fulbright links, so have a look at our sponsors online and see, whether you want to reach out to HRB and talk to them or other sponsors of ours. And of course, ask your mentors who may have been to the States or have had partnerships, worked with people from the States and might have some connections already that you can tap into. So in terms of next steps, you can register on the website now. I'd recommend you do that as soon as possible, so you give yourself lots of time to get those guidelines and the online application link, and you can read through the kind of nitty-gritty of what you need to do. Reach out to your recommenders, your referees. Select a host institution or a number of host institutions. Reach out to them so you can then narrow that down. We would recommend, that you would have a maximum of, usually it's going to be one host institution. Some people have had more, but a maximum of 3 really. I suppose if you're only going for 3 to 6 months on the Health Impact Award, bear in mind that, for your project to get everything done, you don't want to have to travel too much. So just think about things like that in terms of the timeline. Research the Fulbright ethos, really, really important. If you leave this bit out, by the time you get to interview, it will catch you there. The interview is mainly really talking about the cultural aspects of the award, about how you can kind of fit into the Fulbright ethos. So it's really important to get to grips on this. And as I said, talking to alumni is really the best way. And follow us on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And we have lots of updates, webinars, etc. coming up. So if you have any questions, you can send them to awards@fulbright.ie. So if there isn't any immediate questions, I will hand over to Suja, who is a Fulbright awardee for 2019-2020.
Thank you, Emma. First of all, I would like to thank Clodagh and the team from All Ireland Hospice and Palliative Care Services in Ireland. Thank you for giving myself, Emma, and EFI the opportunity to be here and present, and support Fulbright scholars to prepare for their application. So my name is Suja Somanathan, and I'm currently working as an assistant professor in children's nursing. So my background is rare diseases, child health, and family health. So I was awarded Fulbright Health Impact Scholar in 2019 and 2020. So again, because of COVID-19, I will be leaving for my placement early next year. At the same time, it's a great opportunity to share some kind of tips and how I can help in terms of the application process and any questions. It's always good to be connected. Sorry. So this slide is very interesting because it's never too late to start. I just want to tell you why. So when I was a PhD student, I came across the Fulbright scholars in Ireland, including my own supervisor, Professor Philip Larkin. He was a professor of palliative care nursing from UCD at the time. So then I understood how these awards are supporting and promoting the opportunity to teach research and exchange ideas at the international platform like US. So I always wanted to be a Fulbright. I think that was in 2012. But at the same time, I was a PhD student. Then I was a nurse and I wasn't sure whether I will get an opportunity to go and visit place like the National Institute of Health. Even I was a student, always I dream about visiting the National NIH. The name itself is fabulous because I'm mad into genetics and rare diseases. So the last year, early August, I had an opportunity to visit Washington, D.C. And I got an invitation formally invited to NIH for kind of a formal orientation for a day. So I went there and I was very nervous because I wasn't sure as a nurse how I'm going to impress all these officials. Because they do a lot of genome sequencing, exome sequencing, and my background is children's nurse caring for a child and a family in the hospital. And also I was teaching at the time with UCD. So I went in there, but I have to admit my own experience. When you have a Fulbright Scholarship Award, especially in the US, many doors open for you and there are many opportunities. Very welcomed, and I was sitting around all these officials, they are directors of Rare Diseases Center. I was sitting around the table explaining and discussing my research program with rare diseases. I have a number of programs. Everything is very much focusing on psychosocial impact on children and the families. But it doesn't matter, they were so impressed. They were asking me, how could we help you out to reach out to your dream, you know? So what I'm trying to say, it is important. It's never too late for anybody. Any healthcare professional, as Emma mentioned, you could be a person with a PhD or without a PhD with a 5-year experience. But only thing is, make sure there is a leadership qualities and the potentials are there for you to go out to US. And also, if you go to America, you can visit places like Washington, D.C., and I was there, and it's just beautiful to see the Capitol Hill in the midnight. So it's not just about doing a research, it's also about, you know, visiting the place. So when you look at the Health Impact Award, there are scholar status and a professional status. I know many healthcare professionals work in the hospital settings. They're often wondering whether this is opportunity for them. Yes, this is the opportunity for us. So if you're working in the hospital setting, if you have enough experience, if you have leadership quality, definitely go for it. And when you think about, there are many scholars who is currently working in the healthcare settings as a part of the Fulbright alumni. And so it is for everybody. And also people with a PhD, like people working in the universities, like any universities in Ireland, they have a PhD status. Any healthcare discipline can go for this grant application. So I think Emma clearly mentioned earlier, there are a number of different categories. For example, if you are too good at teaching and you really want to do something with the teaching, go for lecturing. And if you are really good at research and you want to do something with the research and you have a research opportunity, and then you think you have both lecturing and research, why don't you go for both? So it's not limiting ourselves to just focus on, you know, so it's up to you to decide what you want to do. So again, this is all in the Fulbright website. You can go back and have a look. But I just thought it's important for us to discuss this. This grant, the Fulbright Health Impact, won't cover attending conferences. This won't allow you to complete dissertation in the US. Travel and consultation with a multiple institution is not part of this grant. And most importantly, this is when if you're applying for a research-based impact award, clinical medical research involving patient contact is not, as not part of this grant application. So just need to be mindful. And also any other discipline you want to do clinical training or a patient care or patient contact is not approved under this program either. So just be mindful when you're preparing your application. I think Emma clearly highlighted earlier. So please read your instruction clearly and go to the Irish guideline. It's a global application, but read Irish guideline because some of the, for example, the eligibility requirement, I think Emma mentioned about English, and also think about, am I eligible for this grant application? For example, people like myself, I'm living in Ireland since 2003. I'm a naturalized citizen. That helped me to apply for the grant. So if I'm a non-Irish citizen living in Ireland, working in the healthcare setting, that won't qualify me to apply for this grant. So you need to be mindful and see, am I eligible for this grant application? And there are steps like how to complete the application, how to submit the application using application inspector, selection process, and there are a number of other instructions available through the website. So when you look at the first step, please read the instruction again and again. Nobody can come and tell you how important to read the instruction. So make sure you read it, plan ahead. Even I think I mentioned my first slide, I was thinking about Fulbright in 2012. I thought about maybe I go for a Fulbright Student Award. Then my supervisor, Philip Larkin, I spoke to him and he said, why don't you wait until you finish your PhD? That gives you more opportunity as a scholar. So I would encourage anybody is thinking about applying for a Fulbright, plan ahead, talk to people. Even I have to admit, when I was applying for the grant, thankfully, my colleague Aoife was there. and we had a numerous chat in the corridor, you know. So reach out to people who you know they can help you out. And like myself and if I see it today, and there are many people out there and they are very willing to support. So, and also when you're planning this project, make sure you contact your host institution early. I remember Emma mentioned you can have maximum 3. For example, I will be going to University Pittsburgh, and also I'm going to work with Children's Hospital Pittsburgh because they are affiliated together. Then my last month of my placement, I will be working with the NIH. So I have a total 3, so I can't go anymore. So my plan is to be there for 4 months to complete the project, looking at evidence-based care for children and families with rare conditions in the US healthcare systems. So the reason I'm saying that it's important to reach out to people early. If you know someone, email them. If you don't know someone, still you can email them. So I remember myself and Aoife had a chat because I haven't heard from the NIH my first email, and Aoife said, I know someone who is the director of the center, and Aoife told me at the time, why don't you email him? And I said, oh my God, do I? And she said, yes, you need to email him. So I emailed Christopher Rothstein. I'm very proud to say his name. And so he is the director of NCAT at the NIH. I emailed him Friday at 5 o'clock Irish time. Then I went to the shop. I came back, collect my child into the car, and I checked my email. Here it is. He is so happy to accommodate my placement. Guys, I just want to highlight, people are really out there to support you. So just reach out to people. It doesn't matter whether they are directors or a dean, just email them and explain what you like to do. Why do you want to be Fulbright? And there are many people are willing to host you. But do that, the arrangement early in advance. So completing your application, make sure you have a clear title, with the focus on the activity of your award. And your curriculum vitae is 4 pages max. But I know some of you probably have maybe 20 or 50, we don't know, but just stick with the 4. Letter for invitation, I think I mentioned, is how important to reach out to people. And then if you are bringing anyone with you, for example, your family or a children, and make sure you submit the detail in early as a part of the application. And as part of the research program, you have to submit a bibliography as well. So just be mindful if you are writing. It's like writing a research proposal. Make sure you have everything in detail along with the reference list. And there is things like a Fulbright statement is about the significance of your project, and then the award form. Nominate your referee. I think there are 3 nominees you needed. So I would recommend, same with the Fulbright Commission, go to your current employer and also go for your previous employer. And they have to submit online through Embark system. So make sure you contact them and ask them, in case, sometimes what happened, it goes to the junk mail. I think I heard from Fulbright Commission and also my colleagues. So make sure you tell them that check their junk mail to make sure they submit your reference online on time. And so then utilize application inspector so that help you to make sure you are completed every part of the section, and then submit online. So the important thing is, when you submit online, then only you can submit the hard copy. So don't submit the hard copy before completing online. That means you are completing incomplete application as a hard copy. So again, teaching experience, so highlight what course would you like to teach and curriculum planning. And if you have a proposed teaching plan, make sure you have everything uploaded, including the syllabus. So this kind of, just to highlight this kind of guideline, for a research, that's what myself and Aoife did the research part. So the research is very important to highlight the background, and so briefly introduce the research topic. Then objectives, make sure you have a clear aim and objective of your project. Then methodology, for example, you have to explain what approach you are going to use, whether it's going to be qualitative or quantitative or mixed method, whatever methodology you are using, you have to highlight. And the time frame is very important. And I can't stress this anymore, because you only have 3 or 4 months to complete your project, and you want to make sure that is completed within the time frame. I just want to admit how much I got support from IFA, because IFA just been and came back to Ireland the time I was preparing. So that support really helped me in terms of bringing my proposal within the time frame. For example, the IRB, I was able to submit from Ireland. I already submitted my IRB at the moment. Because of COVID-19, I couldn't go, which means that is all been done, all been approved. My all research training is completed. So my plan now is to go and conduct my project. So you are trying to save your time as well. Then significance is important. Explain why the project is important. Why do you want to do the project in the US? Why you can't do it in Ireland? So you have to have very clear justification and evaluation and dissemination. I'm nearly there. So justification of residence in the United States is very important. Why do you want to go? So always when you prepare any application, always think what, where, how, when, and why. And then think about, do you have a solid affiliation in the US? Do you have enough knowledge to carry out this project, with your affiliated university? Do you have a mentor in the US institution, or you have a team? So just to think about yourself and before you plan and prepare your application. And also the time frame is important, whether you will be able to complete your project on time. The final tips: read the guideline, do your homework, and just why being a Fulbright matters to you. And it's important to think about why you want to be a Fulbrighter, and make sure you have referees clearly and alert them early. Project statement is about what you do on your Fulbright. Don't wait until last minute. I remember when I submitted online, it was raining heavily. I have to drive from UCD to Marion Square and get the parking. I just bang on time, but don't wait until the last minute like what I did. But I managed, So spell check is important. The Fulbright is only one L. I got confused many times. Hopefully, if you remember that times. So email Fulbright Commission Ireland. They're very helpful. I have to admit, Emma and Sania is here, and Dara Fitzgerald. And they are there for you. Any questions, reach out to them. So submission deadline is 4 p.m. Monday the 2nd, November 2020. So it's nearly there. So plan, prepare, and submit. So just for final slide, you can see there was, I think my group, there were 33 applicants, one of the highest award ever, out of which 17 from UCD, I think, the highest award from UCD. And then you can see Brendan is myself and Jonathan. We are the 3 health impact awardees in 2019 and 2020. So Brendan, radiology, and Jonathan Harwine is a professor of pediatrics from Children Health Ireland. He looked into allergies in child health, and myself is plan to do rare disease, evidence-based practice for rare disease for children and family in the US healthcare system. So unfortunately, I couldn't go. My 2 colleagues went, but their placement was short. But I hope I will be able to go early next year and enjoy my time in the US. And thank you very much. And if you have any question, you can ask me now, or you can wait until the last, or you could email me. Thank you very much, guys. I may hand over to Aoife now. Thank you.
Thanks, Suja. And thank you very much to Claude and her team for inviting us to speak today. So what I'm going to do today is, I suppose, reflect mostly on my experience having been a Fulbright scholar. I think Emma and Suja have done a really good job of talking you through the guidance and the practicalities. So mine will be a bit more experiential, if that's okay. So can you guys see my screen okay? Perfect, okay. So I'll just run through this briefly. As Suja mentioned, as Claude mentioned, I'm a member of staff in the School of Nursing, Midwifery and Health Systems. I have a psychology background, but mainly do health systems and health services research. And I was awarded the HRB Health Impact Fulbright Scholarship in 2018-2019. So in terms, I'm going to reflect briefly on my application preparation, because I know Suja's done a very detailed job of guiding you through this. I have to admit I had very little knowledge of Fulbright before the process, other than knowing that it was this very prestigious award. When it was first suggested to me that I should apply or consider applying, I actually laughed, because it just felt a bit ludicrous, because I thought Fulbright was something very important for proper academics who knew what they were doing, were very progressed in their career already. So I suppose the first thing for me was kind of demystify it a bit and to learn more about it. And I really found that the website, the Fulbright website, was a great source for information about that in terms of understanding what kind of people had been over before, in terms of the kind of research topics and areas, what other people in UCD had been there. And that was hugely helpful, I suppose, in giving me a better sense of what it was all about as well. So in terms of my tips at this stage of the process, I would really advise you to meet previous awardees. I know this is something that Emma and Suja have both emphasised, but to me, that's what gave me the truest sense of what my experience really was. And also, I suppose the depth of positivity from people that have been through the process really strongly encouraged me to apply. It really helped me to understand the programme in terms of it not just being about the academic part of things, but really emphasising the culture exchange as well. So this is really the key thing that struck me in my preparation for my application. Was they wanted obviously a good research plan and a good academic plan, but also really emphasising the cultural exchange, what you felt you were bringing to the table and what you felt you wanted to get out of the experience was really key as well, both in the application and in the interview. I'd really advise people to look for a good fit with a collaborator. And the good fit, I suppose, can look like several different things. It might be a good fit in terms of subject matter, but obviously clear synergies there as well with the person you're collaborating with. It might be a good fit in terms of sharing methodological expertise or learning from each other in a certain way, or even research, I suppose, that's focused around a specific outcome or set of outcomes. So I just think it's really important in your application to have a strong rationale for why you and why working with this person and why now in your career. So I think all those things are key to get across and quite challenging to get across in what's a brief application, but those are, for me, things that I really wanted to emphasize in my application. So Suja has touched on this, and this is the feasibility of the plan. So the Health Impact Scholarship Award is a max of 6 months. So I think it's really important to be realistic in what can actually be achieved in that 6 months. The 6 months is obviously about having an academic achievement and developing a collaboration, but it's also about having time for that cultural exchange and prioritising other cultural activities to help you learn and immerse yourself in wherever you go in the States as well. So I think the feasibility of the plan is key. While it's good to be ambitious, I think it's good to make sure that you have a realistic plan as well. And so what I did in my 5-page research overview was to put in a small Gantt chart to demonstrate that I felt it was feasible to achieve. And one of the best tips I got from a previous Fulbrighter when I attended one of the seminars in UCD a couple of years ago was to include images in your application as well. So rather than just focus on text as we would in a typical grant application, that was actually something a tip I availed of, because in explaining my methodology, I felt it was really useful for someone that wasn't familiar with the methodology to show them exactly what the outcome looks like. And I think that really helped in terms of, I suppose, conveying what I was trying to do to what probably was a non-expert audience, because your application is likely to be sent to people outside your area of expertise as well. So that was really, really useful. Finally, I just wanted to talk about the benefit of going through the application process. So obviously Fulbright is a very competitive process. Not everyone who will apply will be successful, unfortunately, but I think there's huge benefit in going through the application process in itself. I think it enables you to start reaching out to collaborators in the US and making those connections. So regardless of the outcome of the grant application, you're making those strong connections and you're kind of expanding your network. So I feel like even if I wasn't successful in the grant, it would have been a huge benefit for me to go through that process myself anyway. So prior to the visit, I spent 6 months in Chicago, in Northwestern University in Illinois. So March to September of 2019, which is probably one of the last of my cohort to go across to the States. I went on the research-focused one. I'd never been to Chicago before this visit, so it was very much going into the unknown. The induction from Fulbright staff was hugely helpful in terms of the practicalities around visas and health insurance, and they provided us with lots of documents and slides, information that I basically brought with me everywhere for those 6 months, regardless of where I was, because I did need to connect into them a lot in terms of how to liaise with the Fulbright Commission as well when I was over there. I also relied a lot from local university staff that I was going to be working with in terms of living arrangements and advice on where they might recommend or where they might recommend I avoid in terms of living arrangements. That was hugely beneficial as well. And as Suja mentioned, one thing that I wanted to, I suppose, iron out as much as possible, and one thing that I built into my Gantt chart in my application, was that I would seek ethics approval and institutional review board approval from the local sites in advance of my arrival, so that when I arrived I could make maximum use of the time, my 6 months, for data collection. So that was something that we could start working on together before I arrived and before we met in person. And that's something that was hugely beneficial in terms of making sure I could meet the goals that I set out as well. So this was what I was met with upon arrival. Chicago was -9 degrees Celsius when I arrived in the first week of March, and was very much frozen over with piles of snow everywhere. It was absolutely stunning. The campus in Northwestern University is on Lake Michigan, which was mostly frozen over as well. So I was based in the School of Communication at Northwestern University, and I was based with the ATLAS team. The ATLAS stands for Advancing Teams, Leaders and Systems. So the team, I suppose, very closely aligned to the kind of work we do in health systems and in the School of Nursing, Midwifery and Health Systems. So it made a lot of sense for me to go there because there's lots of alignments between our work and our research interests. The team itself is led by Professor Leslie DeChurch, and when I reached out to her, not having any previous contact, and being very nervous about cold emailing people about not knowing what kind of response you'd get, like Suja, I got a response back, I think, within 30 minutes. I was amazed. She was delighted to host me. And I suppose that was my first indication of how well-renowned Fulbright is over there, that people are so eager to host Fulbrighters as well, not just receive Fulbright scholarships, but to host a Fulbrighter is a prestigious thing in itself as well. So on the team, there's lots of PhD students, undergraduate lab assistants and some postdocs. It was a small team that I got to know well, which was great. So they have lots of expertise in quantitative research methodologies, and that's what I wanted to learn from them in terms of some of their advanced networking techniques. And what I hope to share with them, what I did share with them, was some of my qualitative expertise in terms of supporting some of their students. So lots of their work was around teams, team functioning, team effectiveness and team coordination. But lots of their work wasn't in the healthcare setting. It was actually with NASA and space teams and with the US Army teams. So in my application, I made the argument for understanding what we could learn from those contexts and bring into healthcare and use methodologies that are, I suppose, relevant to any kind of contexts where teams are in operation. So I think that was something novel in terms of a different context I was going to work with, but obviously learnings that had wide applicability into healthcare as well. So while I was at Northwestern University, and I think this will be common of lots of the large universities, certainly around the US, they had an international visiting scholars network in the university. So this was not just for Fulbrighters, but for any kind of visiting scholar or visiting student. And this is a really active network that met at least once a week, and they hosted events and they had lunches. So it was a great way to get to know people that were in a similar situation in terms of in a new city, not knowing a lot of people, and trying to get to know the college and the campus. There's also the Ireland network that operates around the US, basically for expats and people with strong Ireland connections. And that's something that I was introduced to when I was over there and given membership to, which is great. So it was a way to know what's going on in terms of events around Ireland. And being there for St. Patrick's Day was one of those events. So getting a gang together to watch them dye the river green in Chicago was a great day out. There's also the Fulbright network, which Emma has alluded to already. And this is obviously a huge network. And it's not just Irish visitors to the US, it's visitors from around the world coming to the US that come together in this network. So that's a great opportunity to build collaborations and just to, I suppose, really explore different sites and different ways of working together as well. So through my work at Northwestern and work with the School of Communication, I was also linked up with people in the School of Medicine, and people in the School of Medicine managed to link me into the hospital network in Chicago. So this really supported me in enabling to collect data in the Lurie Children's Hospital as well. So all of these connections kind of were in addition to those that originally planned for, and those were hugely beneficial in terms of growing my international network, but also enabling me to do the research that was planned. Some a few reflections on my experience. Fulbright is extremely well known in the US, and it kind of surprised me how widely known it is. So I think we have it's kind of entered into popular culture enough in TV and the media that we'd hear things about it. But in the US, I mean, people would stop me at the supermarket and ask me about Fulbright when I was trying to pay for groceries and stuff. So that's how well known it is. It's everywhere. One of the things that, a phrase I heard a lot, I suppose, when I was attending these webinars prior to my own application, was that it opens a lot of doors. And I suppose I was a bit skeptical about that because I need to see something tangible. I need to understand what does that actually mean. But until you experience it, it's really hard to convey what that means, because it just offers so many more opportunities that wouldn't be available to otherwise. I really do believe that it was being introduced as the Fulbright Scholar that got me into work with teams in Lurie Children's Hospital and made me credible in their eyes as well. So I think that prestige that's attached to the Fulbright label is really beneficial in terms of getting you that first step in the door to allow you to prove yourself and prove your value. It was also a hugely beneficial experience in terms of working in a very different healthcare setting. So I had guest access to the Children's Hospital, and I was able to work with staff and do some interviews with staff there. And that was a great experience to see how the hospitals run there. But also a very different research environment where Northwestern's a privately funded university. So they have a very different way of working and a very different level of access to resources. So it was just adapting to that very new healthcare and research environment was a good experience to have and a good skill to be able to report back on. As I've mentioned, while my host institution, my host team was the Atlas team at Northwestern School of Communication, I really did make a lot of connections beyond those that were originally planned and intended. So not just collaborations, but also friendships that have lasted well beyond my 6-month stay. So as I mentioned, I'm working still with the Feinberg School of Medicine at Northwestern and with colleagues at Lurie Children's Hospital, as well as with the Atlas team. So I kind of tripled what I intended in terms of the number of collaborations that emerged from that experience. Also, fortuitously, lots of local collaborators have emerged from the Irish Fulbright network. So during that Fulbright induction that we had, just shortly after we were awarded the scholarships, I happened to sit beside someone at the lunchtime session and we got talking about our research. And since then, we've been working on grants together and doing research together. And Michelle Flood, who is another Health Impact Scholar awardee, is based in RCSI. So we have very similar methodological interests. So we've been able to work together on grants and projects since then, which has been great as well. Just wanted to flag that I really think the Fulbright is a really nice step in career development, especially for early career researchers, because I think it's a really nice indicator that you're on the path to research independence or teaching independence, and that I suppose it's proof positive that you're developing your international network as well. I suppose for me personally, it's because of the new collaborations I started as a result of my visit to Chicago. It's led to new successful funding with collaborators in Chicago, including IRC funding and Royal Irish Academy funding that's come directly as a result of my experience in Chicago on the Fulbright. So that's been hugely beneficial in terms of getting further supports to build those other collaborations. My final, and I suppose if you hear anything from me today, it's the importance of talking to alumni and visiting the website for those stories. The thing that really encouraged me to apply was hearing the alumni stories and hearing the passion and the enjoyment that people got from their experience. And I think there's no better advocate for Fulbright than people that have been through the process. The stories and the blogs online are great, but I'd also encourage you to visit the website to look out for your campus ambassador, and they can be able to link you up with people maybe that are closer in your field or that might be doing a similar methodology or something like that. But these are the people that kind of have a broad overview of what's happening in terms of your local university. So I think that was key for me, and that certainly was very beneficial for me in helping to prepare my application as well. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'm very happy to take any questions.